I would like to call the Richland School District 2, October 24th, 2023 Legislative Ad Hoc Committee to order. But before we start, I'd like to take a point of personal privilege. On Thursday, October the 19th, Richland School District 2 board members attended a civility conference hosted by SCSBA and the Municipal Association of South Carolina. The session was about bringing civility to verbal conflict and promote good leadership at the local level of governance. They introduced civility, respect, and solutions. And at this time, I would like to stand to say the pledge with my colleagues. Nikki, would you like to share with me?
Yes.
Okay. I pledge to build a stronger and more effective school board by advocating for civil engagement, respecting others, and finding solutions for the betterment of my school district. Thank you. Thank you, God. So may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Chairman McFadden?
Yes, ma'am.
Chairwoman McFadden. I'd like to make a motion to approve the October 24th Legislative Committee meeting.
Second.
Second. Thank you. Properly moved. So we're going to move on to item 3.0, new business, no action required. The first thing we're going to talk about is the Richland School District 2 Board of Trustees Legislative Committee structure. As was mentioned at the last board meeting, we found it is necessary to have a legislative committee. At this point, this committee is going to be an ad hoc committee that is going to end on June the 30th of 2024. Because if we have a standing committee, then we have to have a board vote. And due to time constraints, our chair and administration felt it would be best at this point to have this as an ad hoc committee to move forward because we have a lot of information that we need to do. The goal is, however, with this legislative committee, is to move forward into making it a full standing committee. So right now, the scope is this committee is established to review upcoming policies and proposed legislation from the State House and federal government. We seek to determine a stance on future and current legislation that affects our district. We want to advocate for the best interest of our students' academic education and overall well-being and express those concerns and desires to our elected officials. We will review policy updates by following our policy review schedule and concerns of board members, staff, and the community. We will commit to enact policies that best suit Richland School District 2's mission, vision, and goals. Our members are myself as the board legislative contact. I will be the chair. We also have our board secretary, Ms. Tamika Washington, and our legislative delegate, Ms. Nikki Porter. We are requesting the assistance of communications and Ms. Washington, our board assistants at this time. However, we have had discussions that this may not be live streamed on a continuous basis. We're just looking at that as a policy right now and how we want to move forward with that. And we will make that determination at the end of this meeting with other board members. Other members that we might want to invite or to add to our committee would be a social studies teacher or representative. I would like for them to fluctuate from different schools in our district. A community or parent representative, and other board suggested members. So if you're interested in legislation with the school district, please let us know. You can find our contact information on the district website. Our meeting dates will be the second Tuesdays every 2 months. July, September, November, January, March, May, and as needed. So with us starting up, we will probably meet a couple more times before the legislative session that begins in January. The start times will be 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m., and the location will be here at Richland School District 2 Board Meeting Room. Other items that we are requesting are the agenda item added to every fourth Tuesday, every second month for a board update. Public notification sent out a week prior to the meeting with an agenda template, and a committee calendar added to the district website so that you can get the documents that we'll be looking at. This committee will meet with relevant members of state Congress to address policies and laws concerning educational outcomes of students of Richland School District 2. We will utilize the SDSBA Legislative Advocacy and Policy Review Calendar as a guide. And the objective is to transform this ad hoc committee into a standing committee at the end of the 2023-2024 fiscal year. We desire to establish a foundation for the policy-making body of Richland School District 2 to become an active participant in the legislative decision-making process at the state and local government. So what we have today, we're going to go over a couple of policies that we have found that are laying dormant right now in the state legislature because they're out of session. So what we want to do is we want to prepare ourselves and review some of these policies so that we can accurately and intelligently go speak to our legislators about our position as Richland 2 board members on our stance for these policies. We've found quite a few, but we're only going to be bringing a couple at a time. And well, by a couple, I mean 4 today. The first one that we're going to look at, and we're just going to read through, and I might call on my board members. If you want to read one, I read one, you read one, that might work out. How about that? Okay. So I guess I'll start to my right with Ms. Tamika. If you would like to read about the first one that we're going to talk about is the Senate 743, parental rights.
All right, this bill is coming forth to amend the South Carolina Code of Laws for Title 63, adding Chapter 23 so as to enact the Parental Bill of Rights, and by adding Section 6323.110 so as to provide that parents have fundamental rights regarding the upbringing, education, and care of their children. By adding this section 6323 and 130 so as to provide that the government cannot infringe on fundamental rights of parents without a compelling state interest that is narrowly tailored and that cannot be achieved by a less intrusive means. Also, by adding section 6323.140 to provide fundamental rights of parents, adding section 6323.150 to require that school districts create parental involvement policies, adding section 6323.160 to prohibit healthcare providers from soliciting or providing healthcare services to children without written consent, adding another section 6323.16 and 6323.170 to provide that the provisions contained in this chapter supersede any matter to the contrary contained in a state of emergency, by adding section 6323.180 to provide a cause of action for violations of this chapter, by amending section 63.5.340, which is relating to a minor's consent to health care services as to raise the age at which a minor may consent to health services.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. And I will say that what we're doing, we're going to read through these to see where we stand as a board. So we're putting them out there. If you have interest as a community and there's something that you want to let us know about these particular ones, please contact us and let us know. Miss Nikki, I'm going to have you do 2 of them. Can I get you to do 2 of them?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
For S181, academic standards, to prohibit any changes to public education standards, assessments, cut scores, and ratings currently used in this state until July 1st, 2028, at which time the Department of Education shall examine the achievement of students based on the standards applicable from July 1st to 2021 to June 30th, 2028, and make recommendations to the General Assembly about any appropriate changes to these academic standards, assessments, cut scores, and rating based on the finding out its examinations. H 3439, school boards, to amend the South Carolina Code of Laws by amending section 591710 relating to school districts so as to provide school districts shall be responsible for the discipline of students within that school district, by adding Chapter 8 to Title 59 so as to establish the Office of School District Administration in the Governor's Office, to provide for the appointment of the Executive Director, to provide the Office of School Districts Administration to be responsible for the selection and oversight of local school district superintendents, to prohibit local school districts from entering into a new contract or extending a contract for district superintendent, to abolish the State Board of Education and to abolish the Education Oversight Committee, and by repealing Chapter 5 of Title 59 relating to State Board of Education.
Thank you. And I have H3295, competency-based education, to amend the South Carolina Code Section 591210 so as to provide necessary definitions by adding Section 5939-290 so as to direct the State Board of Education to adopt, establish, and promulgate necessary rules and regulations by adding Section 5919-360 so as to provide a process of exemption of competency-based school from certain applicable laws and regulations, to provide requirement for implementing competency-based education in schools, and to provide related requirements of the State Department of Education and the Commission on Higher Education, by amending Section 591425 relating to the statutory annual school calendar so as to make conforming changes, and by amending Section 5939-100 relating to required units for a high school diploma so as to make conforming changes. So before we go on, I really want to take some time to talk about some of these because there's no point in reading through them and we don't dissect them. We will be mindful of the time. We do have just a little bit more to go, but I want to explain some of these bills that are out right now that we're looking for. And I chose these because these are quite important. We're talking about academics. We're talking about parents' rights. We're talking about being able to allow children to go into different classrooms that suit their needs, competency-based education. And we're talking about getting rid of school boards and parental rights. So these are all important topics that need to be discussed and hammered out. And so you guys jump in at any time, but I'm going to start with parental rights. This section is doing a lot to change a lot of the policy that is in there. One of the main things that I want to focus on is and that Ms. Porter touched on last week, was with parental consent for health care. So we do have a bill that's coming through and a policy that is coming through for us to approve a certain medication that is coming. And as it was expressed last week, that, it's going to be done to help save a child's life. But we really want to make sure that if parents are opting for certain no vaccines, no shots, no medication, those kind of things, that there's a way that we can actually put that in our policies to make sure that that child is flagged from getting those things done. Because it is a parent's choice to make sure that their child does receive or does not receive medical care. There would be some things that I might approve for my child to receive, like asthmatic medicine, but there might be some that I don't approve for my child, and so parents have a right to decide what that is and what that could be.
So this part is,
This part is mainly making amendments to talk about the healthcare part.
Well, that's the bottom one. There's different ones. So the bottom one would be that one. So that would be the section for
63,530,340. But then there's also 63,23,160 to
Yeah.
prohibit healthcare providers from soliciting or providing services without consent. Yeah.
So then there's the 63-23-130. It says, so as to provide that the government not infringe on the fundamental rights of parents without a compelling state interest that is narrowly tailored. For instance, if someone, for instance, says that we might go to clear backpacks. Well, someone may say, well, I don't want my child to carry a clear backpack, but the district has decided we're going to clear backpacks. That would be a type of issue, of a concern. So we want to make sure that we are supporting or not supporting each one of these. And so we can say, well, we support 63-20-130, but we don't support another one, or we do. So this is what this is for, so that we can gauge and find out from our public and from ourselves, our board members, which parts we support. Because they don't have to accept all of this. When they go back, they can pull this out and add this in. And so we need to be in the position where we're saying, well, keep that in, but take that out. And we'll be able to compromise and say, well, if you put this in, take that out, that kind of thing. So that's what we want to do. And we want to hear from the public, because when these laws are passed out and they hit the books like the Proviso 180 did last year, there was no one in a position for us to say, or to look at that and read that, to prevent the situations that occurred a few years ago. So we want to be cognitive of that. And so now is the opportunity to look at that. So community, parents, staff, business owners, if there's things that you see that you want changed, you got to let us know, so that we'll be able to speak on your behalf when we go to our legislators. Anything else on that, Ms. Porter? Ms. Washington? Okay, so we're going to go on down to the academic standards. That's S-181. I really agree with this. We want the standards to restart in 2021 and run through 28. We want to cut off 2020. We want to cut that off and start where our children were getting back into school on a regular basis. Our scores have dropped drastically, but we're working diligently to get them back up. We have teachers that are, and our staff, our district office staff, that are working really hard with our teachers and our students to get them where they need to be. And we will see that gap for a few years to get our students where they need to be. And we don't want to judge our students, our kindergartners that are now in third grade, on reading when they were not in school in kindergarten and first grade, and to ding them for those things. And those third grade teachers who are trying to get these students to read before they go into fourth grade. So being able to cut that off at 2021 and go through 2028 and see where we are with our students is a better guide for where we are going on what we need to do. So me personally, I would say I would support that particular Senate Bill 181. Okay. And Ms. Washington wants to actually pull that up. I thought I may have printed it out, and I did try to print all of them out. So what we might do is go ahead and actually get all these printed out so that they'll be at our fingertips and read them beforehand. I was delayed in getting this information to them today. Okay.
I agree with this one, because I think this is one of the things that as educators we often would talk about, is how often our standards would change, and they go through this process of, you're teaching old standards, but you're going to be tested on this new standard, and the cut scores are often changing, and so our scores, 1 year looks like our students are excelling, and the next year it looks like we're not doing so well. So I do believe that this will add some consistency for the next 4 to 5 years, just to kind of give us some real data on how our students are doing. With an expanded time period, not looking at, it's like every 3 years. Even with textbooks, we're adopting new textbooks constantly. I remember being on the English panel for the State Department, and it seemed like we were looking at standards and changing something every 2 to 3 years, and it caused a lot of confusion in teachers, especially those that have been in the classroom and they know what good practices look like, and then to have to turn around and say, oh, well, no, this year we're going to adopt this brand new teaching model because the state standards have changed. So I absolutely am glad to hear that this is something that they're talking about in the Senate.
I agree as well. I'm thinking that this is due to, with COVID and the standards that were lost, or the academic progress that was lost during that time, and this would provide some consistency and something that stays the same while we're still enduring some of the effects of that. A lot of people say it's something not to discuss at this time, to move forward and move on, but the truth is it takes a while, because all standards are related from grade to grade, and this would provide an adequate enough time for our students to move through their grades without still being affected to the loss that they had in 2020.
Thank you. Okay, Senator Fanning. Yeah. Okay, we're going to go on to House Bill 3439. There are some people in the House who have decided that They would like for the school districts to basically be dissolved and move the hiring of the superintendent and the discipline of our students to the governor's office. While I can understand the concern over school boards, but we're taking civility classes. We are working toward making sure that we're doing what we need to do the appropriate and effective way. I can't knock them for this policy because, as we all know, that there was concern. However, we are elected by the local body here to represent those who attend school here and their children. So we are really at arm's length from our constituents, and we can hear them at a closer level and actually advocate for them and the positions that they hold wherever they are and whatever the subject is. For instance, last night we had a young lady on our Safety and Security Committee, Miss Rivers, who was able to come in and advocate on behalf of her child who has special needs, and provide us information that is relevant to what exactly is happening and what needs to be done in our schools right here, and the good things that are happening and the positive things that are happening, because a lot of times you only hear the negative. But when you have someone that is close that can come within 10 minutes right after work to let us know what's going on, to help us, to call our superintendent, to call board members, that we might see them in the grocery store and still come and advocate and listen and write policies for the children that are here. It's best practices. The governor's office, I'm sure, is very busy with all that they have to do. So finding that time, it could be done. However, I feel like that there is a purpose for us to be here, and there's a purpose for us to serve in this capacity. So I will not be supporting House Bill 3439. Okay.
Reading this, there are parts of this that I would like to know more about, and I'll probably reach out to the person who sponsored this bill. Definitely agree with you in that I do believe that school boards should stay in place, because what I know about our different areas is every school district may have different needs. Mm-hmm. And we know how often we have to give approval for different things that are happening that's school-based, and to think that one office would be in charge of all of these different school districts, and I think that would be a lot, and not as giving a personable experience based on the area in which we live. We know some rural areas have different needs, and changes shouldn't affect everyone based on one need in a different area. However, I've always been concerned about the fact that we have a state board of education and education oversight committee. And what I've learned in this position is there are many things that we didn't realize that the Education Oversight Committee has actually affected us in our schools. In a recent board meeting that we had, we heard that there are decisions made to fund different parts of textbook adoptions and not to fund. And we currently had some concern about having enough workbooks for students, and it's a public school. I don't think that should be an issue. And then I also know that Education Oversight Committees sometimes, and I have to double check this, but I believe it's that they oversee textbook adoptions. And when they make a decision like that, again, different areas have different needs, and you pick one textbook, well, you might consider the cost of that textbook and so forth, and it affects their decision. I've heard from many teachers about a specific textbook adoption that didn't meet the needs of our students, and they were looking for options to provide more rigor. And so, again, that takes away from the overall funds that we have as a school district by having two of these, and not every state has two. So I believe that's a bit there's too many funds going in that area. And again, I would have to look into it more about what are all the duties of the Education Oversight Committee, but I believe that I will probably end up wanting that piece pulled out and us going back to one.
Yep, and I was going to say, I agree with Nikki on this. If we can contact Representative Collins and just find out, some history behind this, and, why, what direction, why the proposal of this. I agree, I think it's too many oversights, a state board and an education oversight committee, and then the local board, and then the governor's office. And so I just want to get some clarity on the why behind this bill.
Okay, and so the last one we'll talk about quickly here is H 3295, and that's competency-based education. And basically, this is just allowing schools leniency on certain laws and regulations if they become competency-based. And that's basically allowing the children to progress according to their need and their desire. For me, I believe that if you have a student that can excel in English and it's at 11th grade level in the 6th grade, allow them to take that 11th grade course. However, if they're on the 3rd grade level in mathematics, allow them to catch up and work on that, because each person has their own nick and knack of what they're good at and what they struggle with. So allow the students to progress in those areas that they flow in well. And then those areas that they struggle in, allow them time to be tutored. We literally have a one-size-fits-all mentality when it comes to age and grades. So if you're 14, you're in the 9th grade. If you're 15, you're in the 10th grade. That kind of situation. If you're in this group, but we know that each child is different, so they're able to maneuver a little bit more fluid. We have virtual classes in which students can go and join. We heard a young lady here last night who is a senior at her high school at Ridgeview, and she's taking college courses right now. That is wonderful, because if she can move on and move forward, we should allow her. And the same is in reverse. If we need to have someone that is struggling, then we can get them the teachers that they need. And so we do need to dig into the competency-based education a little bit more to figure out exactly how that operates and what that institutes, because it says they want to change some laws and regulations that pertain to a school that does decide to be competency-based.
I was trying to look at who's co-sponsoring this.
Okay.
There's 4 of them.
Yeah.
So we'll be reaching out to those representatives for these, and then also the 2 Senate ones, just to see, heads up, be looking forward to our call. We are really actively trying to form those relationships so that we can work together for the betterment of our children. Okay?
And then I do want to add, we had, it was a teacher at Blythewood High School who had some freshman students. I read an article about her. She was published, or an article was published about a practice that she did to close the achievement gap. And she taught her students in a classroom that they were, quote unquote, not ready for. And they did well. And so when we start talking about, like you said, age 14, 15 in the 9th grade, but then looking at, can a student master the content and be able to move on? I think it's an important topic. You hear about kids that are entering in college. We have dual enrollment programs. Kids are taking college credit courses and their high school courses. And so I do think we need to look at revamping our education structure, especially when they get in high school.
I just want to get a detailed interpretation of this one, because I'm not sure if I understand it 100%, and I want to make sure that I'm interpreting it correctly, because it seems pretty big.
Exactly.
And what I want to see how this would affect AP courses. Would this allow for more students to have access to that? How will it affect us when it comes to our courses by grade and what that looks like. And also what it could change for the teacher. What would the teacher be responsible for? I also think that with this, you have to consider how they're assessed. Because if they're being assessed on their grade level standards, I would say let's discuss on the flexibility in that, or is there an assessment that's more nationwide based? I know with MAP testing, you're testing students as far as they could go, and it's nationally normed, which to me provides more context and more information. So my only concern is the assessment piece to this, and would it be relatable?
Okay, absolutely. Okay, we're going to move right along to, we have a proposal for our delegate assembly. And this is something that Dr. Moore has put out at the beginning of the year when we all started back and discovered that we didn't have any safety and security officers, and we needed Class 3 officers. So what we've presented and what we'd like to say at the delegate assembly is to push for some kind of officers, for the language in either the state, local, or federal government to be changed to allow our security personnel that we already have hired on staff to be trained to assist with it's okay. To assist with traffic regulations. Now, we do have them that have started and they're able to allow children to walk across the street. However, we need a more robust program where we have someone that's out there literally directing traffic, because I'm going to say it again, that left-hand turn in a lot of places is not a viable solution to turn right. We're going to have something or someone out there. So what we've drafted is a resolution of child safety and traffic control in school zones. And we've come up with a rationale in the background, and we'll have this posted somewhere for you to see. This is what the three of us are going to take down to South Carolina School Board Association after we bring it to our board and see if we can get this voted on to pass here. Then we'll go and take it to the SCSBA to see if we can get it on their resolutions that they want to take to the State House as well.
I also think that this would be good for us to introduce to our Richland County delegation. Thank you. So that they know that this is something that we're advocating for, and we can get their input, as well as it will affect districts across the state, like Horry County and some of those larger districts where they have some of the same traffic issues. So I do think it would be great for us to introduce it to them as well.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry to interrupt. This, I want to go, it's off track. But in the last one that we covered, the competency base, I just wanted to make note of it to make sure you were aware that this has moved out of House and it's now in the Senate in committee. So it's only one more step. So just be cognizant of that. If you're going to do one, do this one first, because it's higher up. It's practically done. So
Thank you. Awesome.
Yeah.
It was referred on the 30th to the Committee on Education.
Oh, awesome. That's good. All right, so we're going to keep it moving. We have a policy review update. We met, the three of us met on Friday, October the 20th at 1:30 to do our very first policy review update, and I'm going to let Ms. Tamika Washington go from there.
Thank you, Ms. McFadden. So our meeting was called to order at 1:39, and we looked at the 2015 facilities plan for Richland 2, and we discussed that we needed to get an update on where we were. That facilities plan, it appears that it was very critical in our 2018 bond referendum. And so then we also wanted to get a deadline from administration for completion for our bond referendum and get an update. I know we're going to have a capital improvements update tonight, which we'll get some of that information as well. We also talked about a facility study and making sure that all of our schools are conducive for learning, that we're prepared for what's to come in the county. You can drive down any street and see neighborhoods are popping up still continuously. So we wanted to make sure that the administration has a plan to do a study. And I think that's also going to require us to build that bridge and that connection with our county council, and begin looking at some of those committees that they have, zoning and things like that. I know that there are meetings that are probably going to be coming up within the next couple of months, so we'll be able to attend some of those zoning meetings and hear from you all, the community who are attending those meetings as well, and that'll help us as a district to be able to make some informed decisions. We looked at policy FA, facilities development, and really didn't find many changes that were needed there. Policy FB for facilities planning, we wanted to look at our long-range needs, which is what we talked about. And then looking at also, do we need to add something in here related to any practices that we have in place for land studies? And then also, again, just ensuring that our learning spaces are equitable for the needs of our students. We also talked about policy FEE briefly, the site acquisition, just adding language for, who's that designated person, and what are those designated accounts that are needed. For that particular policy, do we need to spell it out? And then for policy FF, naming facilities, one of our board members had mentioned or suggested something related to naming buildings, and so we're going to get clarification on that and see if that's something that the board would like to move forward on. And that's it.
Thank you so much, Ms. Washington. So we're going to move forward with Exhibit E is what I'm calling it, the advocacy calendar. And so we've had a lot of talk about, getting together with our community, and we've been super busy this year, but we don't want to let the semester end and not do what we've said we wanted to do, which is host a town hall. So what we're going to do and what we've planned to do is to have on December the 12th a nice little town hall. The vision is to have coffee, hot tea, cupcakes, bagels, donuts, on a nice spread upstairs. We're going to have an elementary school come and serenade us. So we're looking for a great festive day on that time, on December the 12th. So we are in the early stages of planning, but we didn't want to let the semester end without doing something for our community. And we've been, like I said, we've been so busy, but we just really wanted to do something. So if you're able and available, please come out. It's just going to be a very relaxed and leisure time. We will be sending invitations out to our legislative delegations and our local community, business leaders will be invited. Everyone is invited, so please come. SIC president, we're inviting everyone just to come out on the last day of our board meeting for this year and celebrate the success that we're having in this district and moving forward. We've got bright lights ahead and we're ready to take off and go. And so we just want to say thank you. So with that, we have, we're now at our board comments. If anyone wants to say anything or share anything else. Go ahead.
No, I think you were probably going to say something I was going to say. The thing about the legislative committee, I do want to just encourage that even if you can't attend the meetings, but if you are connected to your legislators, help us make those connections, but also help us to advocate for things that are important for you as well. If you're SIC presidents and you all are having your meetings and you're talking about specific things that you want the board to be aware of, and things that we need to advocate for our community, please use that time to let us know. It might be good for us to maybe kind of create something on our site where, the community can give some input on some of these different things that we're proposing. And in that way, we can also take that information back. But in reference to the town hall, if you're able to come out, it'll be a good time also for us to hear from you as well and make those connections. Thank you for putting this together.
Thank you, Ms. Washington.
Thank you for all of your hard work, Ms. McDonough.
I appreciate it, Ms. Porter. So I would like to say, if I'm not mistaken, tonight is election night in District 19. I would say we have lost a great hero in Mr. Scott, and his seat is supposed to be filled tonight. So for whoever wins, and for whoever does not win tonight, the Democratic delegation, we are open to working with all of you because I've watched the panel discussions and I've attended a lot of the meetings, and everyone is truly, truly a great advocate for their community and would offer such great experience at every level that they've been working at. So I would just say early on, congratulations to whomever you are, because we'll probably be in the middle of our meeting when it's announced. But I just want to say the work is just beginning. So have a great evening. And with that, we will adjourn our meeting at 4:58. Is that okay? Okay, a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Porter?
may we, I move that we conclude the legislative meeting on October 24th, 2023 at 4:58.
Second?
Second.
Thank you so much. The meeting is adjourned.